No, I think I have, because I grew up in an environment, and you can appreciate this, Alison, where there's a lot of potential for pretension, because, my mother went to a certain boarding school, and so did my dad, and they went to certain colleges that have, and there's a lot of douchery that can really happen in that environment where, oh, I went to the right school and I have the right whatever. And because and especially because I grew up in the 60s and 70s where there was all this pushback against the establishment. And also, to be fair, my grandfather was he was just an out and out racist, and and I think my great grandfather was probably a slave owner,
because you have Southern roots in your family, right?
I have Southern roots. My mom was born in Savannah. My great grandfather, great, I don't know, was the mayor of Savannah. So yeah. We have So I just was always running in the opposite direction from that, So yeah.
My middle name is the name of a town in Georgia that is named after a Confederate general.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's a family name.
That's a lot to carry. What's your middle name?
Hazelhurst.
Oh, right, Hazelhurst. I knew that. Yeah.
And it's a shit little town with a Dairy Queen and a red light, and halfway between here and Milledgeville. It's always like your bathroom stop on the way to the lake. So proud.
Yes. And that's something else we have in common, is that my family's from Georgia and Alison's from Georgia. And it's and not just anywhere in Georgia. Like my mom used to spend her winters in Sea Island, or summers. Anyway, they used to spend time in Sea Island, which is exactly where.
That's exactly where that my parents' wedding reception was at the beach club. My aunt, the cousin that I'm currently staying with, her parents had their reception at the beach club. And her family founded the cloister, founded Sea Island, not mine. Her mom married it. My mom married a fucking Renaissance man.
Mm-hmm. also known as Alison's dad. The fucking Renaissance man.
Yeah, that's fancy for mostly unemployed. Oh, God rest his soul.
Oh, yeah. It's so nice once they're gone, isn't it?
Oh my God.
So Alison and I have bonded over many things, not the least of which is coming from a pretty fucked up family. That's me speaking for myself.
No.
Yeah.
You know of which you speak.
I know of which I speak. Yeah.
Oh, you are. I mean, honestly, you're my therapy Thursdays, because that's when we have our touch base. And so your listeners know, she's my virtual writing coach, who I just basically unload on 15 minutes a week, and lots of creativity comes out of it. But yesterday was all about the fact that I was going absolutely nutballs, being like sucked into the vortex of family dysfunction within 72 hours. And I was a participant, I can't say that I did it unwillingly, somewhat unconsciously, but I needed that 15 minutes. I needed it. And it turned my entire day around.
Oh, I'm so happy.
It did. It really, really did. And that, I know that sounds schmaltzy, but it's 100% true. I said to my husband last night or the night before, I need 10 minutes of you listening and hearing me, just help me unpack it. And then I talked to you in the morning, and you're not connected to any of these crazy fucking people. Yeah. And he is. So to him, it's sort of like he gets that it makes me nuts, but he also finds it humorous. And I do after the fact, not in the moment.
Right. Not when you're well, because it's like, if you go back into that family environment, all your buttons are pushed because you're around the people who, some of them created those buttons, or that family dynamic, that stuff that happens, it happens generationally. And, God willing, and with therapy and all that stuff, it lessens and it gets better, and we're changing the dynamic and hopefully, letting go of that old bullshit. But I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said it's so nice when they're gone. My mom and dad are both dead. And not that I miss my mom a lot sometimes, and I even miss my dad sometimes, but it's, not that I didn't grieve them both, but I don't know.
Of course. I went on a date with my, last night we told our son we were going to go to the liquor store, and we totally knew we were also going to stop at happy hour at the golf club. We're like 1950s parents. We're just going out for cigarettes. So I'm sitting there with my martini. I was like, it's just so nice not to have the stress of tomorrow night is dinner with my dad. And, everything it does that I never didn't love him, but I would have to find the perfect restaurant where the noise wasn't too much, but the food was really good. And the, waiter wouldn't rush him because he likes to eat slow like the Europeans. And then after every one of these dinners, we'd get in the car and I would just start sobbing. And my husband is Catholic and he does not process feelings. So,
oh no, we take the feelings out way young when they're Catholic.
He's like, there. That's it. Shut up.
You'll be fine, sweetheart.
Shove it down. So finally it was like, I even said to him once, why is this happening? He said, because it's trying to organize a meeting with the CEO and everything has to be perfect. Like you're satisfying the most high maintenance client in the world.
That's your dad. Your dad's the most high maintenance client in the world. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're just, so you're worried the whole time.
And you might play that out with the CEO, right? You might have those certain triggers hit, but you're doing it with the person, like somewhere in you, your little I'll speak for myself, somewhere in there, my 5-year-old is still waiting for that approval and a certain type of attention and love that I never got. So no matter how much we understand it intellectually, there's a part of us that's still waiting.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I would go and visit my mom and she would do or say something completely in keeping with who she was. And every time it felt like I got kicked in the stomach when I wasn't expecting it. Every time. Because we're still waiting,
Yeah.
And it's fucking exhausting. And that's why thank God you got in the car and sobbed, though. That's good.
Yes.
Really? Because that's like, you get to have a release and you get to grieve. You get to grieve what you're not getting. And you get to acknowledge that this is fucked up, right?
And in real time, I was glad about that. I mean, it was still a few years later, but, once my son was sort of, I still tried to do this when he was 2. That's insane. And I just finally said, this has nothing to do with anybody else but my dad. Like,
when you said you tried to do this, what was this?
Like, arrange a dinner and sit with my father and listen to him, because we listened. He held forth and we heard his stories, and
so everybody kind of continued to sort of play the role and not point to the fact that pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Like everyone continued to pretend he was the great and powerful Oz.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And my mom too, and she I think she knows intellectually because she was married to him and she also divorced him. But she was under his spell still. I mean, he was charming, and other people were like, "Oh my God, I loved your dad," and I'm like, "Yes, I do too." I think people confuse sort of being able to see that he was human doesn't mean I love him any less. But there came a time during my adult life when let's be honest, I didn't confront the guy. I was never, ever brave enough. But I finally just said, we will be at Melanie's house. I mean, we're out in the woods. There's rivers and trees and pools and places to sit. I receive folks. And I just finally said, you guys come here. I have a kid. I can put him down for a nap. I can hang out.
But that's a huge shift, though. I think you got to acknowledge that's a huge shift. That's really good. Hey, by the way, I never confronted my dad. Yeah. By the way, just so you know, I was waiting for the deathbed scene where then I would confront him, and then he fucking died and didn't let me. He didn't tell me he was dying, so he got the last laugh. But
I love your story. Not in a but I mean the way that you tell it, and that you survived it. You came out on the other side.
Yeah.
You had me at Day of the Dead, Daddy. It was kismet.
It was. I made all these female friends in college, and many of us found out along the way that we were all incest survivors. And it was all like, was it like we had a secret tattoo on our forehead that we all recognize? But I think that we recognize on some sort of almost vibrational level people that have survived a similar type of trauma. And we're drawn to each other.
Yeah.
If they've survived the trauma and they're funny, then I'm in.
Right.
And we just find each other. Yeah.
There's
fantastic.
A way, like I've moved through life with a certain look on my face that I think that's, the right women are like, oh, she definitely needs some affection. But she's too afraid to ask. And because of that's the trauma that I brought in. But I'm like, I'm super funny when you know me. I just immediately assume you don't want to know me.
Losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it. If you